Tonight's Bible reading comes from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 15, verses 1 to 3, and then 11 to 32. Now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around to hear Jesus. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." Then Jesus told them this parable. Jesus continued, "There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, 'Father, give me my share of the estate.' So he divided the property between them. Not long after that, the younger son got together all that he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he'd spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. When he came to his senses, he said, 'How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare? And here I am, starving to death. I'll set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants.' So he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' So they began to celebrate. Meanwhile, the elder son was in the field. When he came near their house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him, 'What's going on?' 'Your brother has come,' he replied, 'and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound.' The elder brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, 'Look, all these years I have been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours who has squandered your property with prostitutes comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him.' 'My son,' the father said, 'you are always with me and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.'"
Thanks. So Megan mentioned she chose songs aligned with Tracy's sermon, which was about forgiveness, but it turns out that when you talk about forgiveness, you end up talking about God's love and God's faithfulness too. So it all worked. And it did remind me of a time I was in a church and there was a guest speaker and he was like, "And to close, let's just sing one of those songs you sang earlier tonight, you know, the one about Jesus." And all the musos are like, "Weren't they all about Jesus? What does he mean?" Anyway, this parable of the father and 2 sons is so rich. So today we'll take some time to look at it through a few lenses. The first lens is the context at the beginning of the chapter. The tax collectors and the sinners were gathered around to hear Jesus, and the Pharisees and the teachers of the law were complaining that Jesus welcomes sinners and eats with them. And so Jesus' response is a set of 3 parables. Scott just read the 3rd one for us, thank you. One thing all the 3 parables have in common is rejoicing over finding something that was lost. In the first parable, a shepherd has 99 sheep safely bunched together, but he goes out to find the one missing sheep. When the shepherd finds the missing sheep, he calls his friends and neighbours together to celebrate. In the second parable, a woman has 10 coins. So that's likely like her dowry or her engagement gift that could have been sewn into her head covering to signify her status of belonging to her fiancé or her groom and that family. So losing one of those coins really matters. So she searches everywhere. And when the coin is found, she calls her friends and neighbours together to celebrate. And the last parable, this time there's a lost son. And the father waits for the son to be ready to return, running from a long way off to welcome him and getting the whole household to celebrate. So Jesus told 3 stories to make sure that we all know God notices when people are missing. God notices when people are outsiders. God notices when people have lost their way. He wants to gather and welcome and celebrate and see completion in the flock, the set of coins, the family, whichever metaphor hits home for you. Hopefully the sinners and the tax collectors in Jesus' audience at the time understood this and saw that that message of love and inclusion was for them. But the third parable has an extra layer to it, a message to the Pharisees and teachers of the law, because in this one, not everyone is rejoicing with the Father. There's an older brother who's complaining, an older brother who believes he has been faithful and he's envious of the younger brother's celebration. I'd like to think we can all get on board with Jesus' message of welcome and rejoicing when those who are lost are found, when the flock of sheep is whole again, or when the family is complete. But we're not always the rejoicing friends and neighbours in these stories, so I want to look at it through the lens of the other characters. Sometimes we may feel like the younger son. Remember, it's tough being a younger son in a patriarchal society where the inheritance and responsibilities are clear for the oldest son. Maybe we've felt like someone who has less welcome, less status, less certainty of how we belong in God's family. Maybe we've thought there's no point in faithfulness to God's family if we feel like we'll always be a second-class member. Maybe it has felt like our best course of action is to take what we can and go find pleasure and joy and security from other sources. Maybe we've had a wake-up call and realised those other sources dry up, and we've decided to come back to the Father's house. If you identify with this part of the story, take a moment to realise that your welcome from God isn't half-hearted. It is exuberant and generous and lavish, so much so it's enough to make your siblings jealous. Know that even though society may assign love and value based on birth order or gender or so many other things, our God's love does not discriminate. And sometimes we may feel like the older son. Maybe we've felt a bit like Martha, working on all the jobs of hosting Jesus and his guests, and we've been wishing our sister Mary would pitch in. We go to Jesus expecting him to tell Mary to help, and instead Jesus says the better thing is to take time to sit with the other disciples at Jesus' feet. Maybe, like the older son, we feel like we've been slaving away, carrying responsibilities for the family, rather than just belonging in it. Maybe we think we've been faithful because we've been doing all the work and following all the rules, all the orders is the word that was used in the passage. But what God really wants is for us to be a faithful reflection of his heart for finding those who are missing, his heart for welcoming and celebrating the return of those who were lost. And maybe to be ready to give that kind of expansive love and joy, we need to first receive it. We need to reach out to God and ask for a greater understanding of how he loves us and rejoices over us. So, to take a moment to tie this in with our big year theme of being faithful, which is the theme for the month. There are other themes for all the other months that you can catch up on later. No matter which character we feel like, we all have moments when our faithfulness fades, when we decide to leave our place in God's family, or when we might be doing what we think is expected, but not staying faithful to the loving, welcoming heartbeat that God wants his children to have. But always, our faithful, loving God is embodied in a shepherd looking for a lost sheep, a woman determined to find a missing coin, a father watching for the moment he can welcome his youngest son home, and also a father going outside the party to find his older son and to plead with him to join in with the joy of loving and welcoming. And so I know this season of Christmas and end of year can sometimes be a bit triggering. It can trigger our feelings of being lost or lonely or not belonging, our feelings maybe of being unappreciated or burned out. And so I want to encourage us all to find our love and belonging in the God who rejoices to welcome us, to celebrate who we are and how much we mean to him. Let's find ways to mirror that faithful love and joyful welcome to the people in our world.